Talking with famous people.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Talking with Famous People. And tonight on Talking with Famous People, we are very proud to offer one of the most exciting sporting events you're likely to encounter in your entire life. That is to say, MBTI Debate Deathmatch. YAR 2016. YAR Explosion. Let's look at the first slide. Bob, can you get that first slide up, please? There we go. Good job. So, you'll notice we see the the formal name of this competition is the MBTI Intertype Debate Deathmatch Your Explosion 2016 Tournament. Forgot the word tournament. Today's matchup is, as you see there, INTJ versus ISTJ. Now, not all the first round matchups are going to be just like this, where you go the N versus the S or something like that. No, but I picked these. I thought it was an interesting looking matchup, so that's why I picked it. Okay, so let's go down here to the next slide. And by the way, if you've never watched my shows before or don't know anything about me, I am actually a debate coach, so I do know kind of what I'm talking about. Okay, so this next slide here we see on the left there is INTJ in orange, and on the right is ISTJ in purple. And the middle is going to show where the advantage lies. Now for this first slide, you'll notice we don't have any advantages because these aren't things being weighed in the round. These are neutral attributes, as it says there in the middle. So they're cognitive stacks. Let's look at that first. INTJ is rolling in with introverted intuition in the dominant slot. That makes them very dangerous. Okay, I probably have scored them a little low in this round. I'm going to say they didn't need breakfast before the round, but their coach got them a snack after the first round. Okay. Now ISTJ rolls in with Introverted Sensing in the first slot. You're like, well, that's useless for debate. Wrong. So wrong. It's absolutely useful for debate. And it means this person's going to be coming in organized. Let's look at the second slot. Identical in both circumstances. You've got extroverted thinking, which means these two people are going to roll in with the most prepped out boxes you're ever going to see. It's going to be filled with shit, right? Both these guys are going to be really well prepped. But one of them is going to be more well prepped than the other, and that's going to be ISTJ. Is going to be substantially more well prepped, actually. But INTJ, when I say they're going to be really well prepped, I mean they're going to be really well prepped compared to, say, ENTP. Cognitive approach. Mixed. There's three things here. It could be improvisational, leaning planning, or mixed. INTJ is mixed. ISTJ is 100% planning. They're the most planniest of all plans. Okay. One INTJ animal. What kind of animal do they represent as a sort of a warrior? INTJ is a snake. They will have things set up just so. We're going to do something squirrely. That's their case style, you know. Squirrely is a word that we use to describe cases. Anyway, whereas ISTJ is ant colony. They will have tried to prep out for every possible contingency. And they're going to have a million cards that each is designed to do a specific job. Okay, if they say X but not Y but also Z, then we read exactly this card. And they won't have that all out, that shit planned out ahead of time. Okay, so now, case style, squirrely. That means INTJ wants to win on their brilliance. They want to come up with the most clever case they can possibly imagine that nobody's prepped out for, and walk into a round and be like, this is our case, and the other team have no idea what to do with it. Meanwhile, ISTJ is the exact opposite. They want to run a middle-of-the-road case. And it's a straightforward case, but they want to know that they've prepped out for every possible contingency. There are advantages to doing it that way. All right, now let's look at strategies. Because INTJ wants to win on their brilliance, their strategy is fundamentally defense. Because ISTJ wants to win on case, more or less, their strategy is fundamentally offense. I mean, they both want to win on case, but ISTJ is saying, we want to win under the default framework of general cost-benefit analysis. By the way, if you're an actual debater and you're wondering about the framing of this round, I am presenting these as though it were a public forum round. And the reason for that is because public forum both teams have cases. There are no plans. There are no counter plans. And so it makes it easier to compare. It's symmetrical. Anyhow, if you're not an official debater and you don't know what I'm talking about, sorry to use jargon and stuff, but I'll try to avoid doing that. I'm going to try to explain all the debate jargon that I use. So as far as strategy goes, INTJ is going to run defense because they're going to expect their case, their brilliant idea to win. And they're going to just say, look, if we can defend our case, it's going to win no matter what they're running because our case has done something that is necessarily going to win the round. It's full of voters, and we know how to force it back onto our side of the framework. And the framework is, of course, what kind of stuff do we think is most important in this round? All right, so the ISTJ strategy is basically offense. They're going to run a lot of stuff that has regular, powerful impacts, dead bodies, large costs of money, and they're going to try to pile up bigger impacts than their opponent. That's the ISTJ's basic strategy. Now, as far as the persuasion style, INTJ's ethos and ISTJ's logos, you see there, what does that mean? Does it mean like INTJ is going to run ethical arguments? No, it means INTJ is leaning towards binary arguments. They're trying to say, well, we should win because if we vote for the opponent, then we're supporting something that violates some core value of Western democracy or something. Whereas ISTJ is likely to say, we should win because we've shown that if we vote for them, a bunch of people are going to die. And I don't know if you'd call that. I see the utilitarian side as more logos and the deontological side is more ethos. That if you don't like those terms, that's fine. Okay, let's go on to the next card. It's a little short one, I think, or is this on the bottom of the same one? The next page. Tips from Coach. Best advice. Make them explain. INTJ. Make them explain. Make your opponent explain to you their answers to your case, for example. If you're going to go in there with a squirrely, crazy case, and they're giving you answers that are kind of half-assed general warrant answers that are just pulled for, well, I'm going to just read this card because I'm going to read this piece of evidence. That's what a card means in debate. A piece of evidence because it's opposed to your general position, but it's not actually directly responsive to your warrant, the argument you're making, the reason why you're saying your impacts are actually going to come true. So for the INTJ, they know they're going to be coming into this round with a big advantage in terms of depth of case, basically. They have a deeper case, and they've got a trickier case. So that's what they need to do is force your opponent to reveal to the judge that your opponent doesn't really know what they're talking about. As far as the best advice for the ISTJ, spread them out. What does that mean? Spread in debate is a conjunction of speed read. And so what I'm saying there, what it functionally means when you say spread somebody out, it means run a lot of different arguments, okay? So you want to make INTJ spend their time on your side of the flow. See, remember, each team or each entry here, the INTJ and the ISTJ, they each have their own case. If I'm running a case that says we should stop the death penalty because it costs too much, and you're running a case that says we should keep the death penalty because it prevents murderers from killing again, then you're going to have to weigh the impacts. Why should we prefer your dollar savings over saved lives if the opponent doesn't ever argue that it doesn't actually save lives? Let's just say they play no defense, Then you have to argue framework. What's more important, saving money or saving lives? Well, the money people will say, ultimately we're talking not only about sanctity of life, but quality of life. They might say that with the additional funds, we can actually save lives by funding things like hospitals and schools and shit. Anyway, so that's a framework kind of argument where you're trying to argue which kind of impact is better. What you want to do is make them come over to your side of the flow. If they have to answer all your contention level stuff, they're not going to have time to win the framework they need to win in order to win this round with their squirrely case. All right, so what do you know when you go, uh-oh, after the first speech? They, meaning ISTJ, has spiked your, meaning INTJ's case. If ISTJ spikes your case, you're screwed, right? Like if somehow they have a really clever coach and endless time to prep, and they somehow manage to come up with your tricky little plan you got going on there and prep it out ahead of time, you're kind of screwed if you run that case. Now, keep in mind, INTJ is clever. And it's unlikely that it'd go into a round with a Squirrely case without having a backup plan. Very unlikely, I'd suggest. But remember, one of the reasons why I'm doing public forum is that it does afford everybody a little bit less time to prep. You've got a month on a topic, and that's it, and then a new topic comes out. So, it's reasonable to think they might spike your case. You might not have their spike prepped out. And to spike a case means to, in your own case, say, now, look, Judge, if my opponent says X, Y, and Z, then this is why you shouldn't consider X, Y, and Z on this round, blah, blah, blah. Which means they're already rebutting your case before they even get to the rebuttal speech. If they spike your case, So, that's a problem for you if you're INTJ and you're running some squirrely shit. If you're ISTJ, what's the problem? They surprise you. Anything surprising, you're fucked. All right? Because ISTJ, improvisation is not your strength. In fact, it's the opposite of that. So let's go down. Let's look at this matchup by matchup. First row, prep. ISTJ is going to win it. Yeah, INTJ is going to be really well prepped, and ISTJ is going to be the best prepped of anybody, basically. There are a couple of types that have a 10 out of 10. ISTJ is one of them. They're organized internally with introverted sensing. They're organized externally with extroverted thinking. They're going to come and they're prepped to death. Okay, next we've got argumentation depth. How sophisticated are the arguments being made here? Well, INTJ's arguments are very high. And in fact, I should have put very high there instead of high. They're not the best, but they're very high. And they're probably, they're right up there with any other type, basically, in the 9 to 10 range, right? So out of 10. On the other hand, the depth of argumentation for the ISTJ is going to be medium, and the reason it's not going to be low is because at the end of the day, they're so well organized that they're going to utilize resources. There are lots of resources in the world for people to use. They don't have to come up with all their own arguments. They have to understand the arguments they're running, though. And so that's why it's only going to be a medium depth of argumentation for the ISTJ. But that's not necessarily a deal breaker, right? That's not necessarily going to kill them in the round. Depth of argumentation requires, for one thing, a smart judge. If you've got not such a great judge, then it's not going to necessarily help you. All right. Flexibility. Flexibility, the INTJ is medium high. They're reasonably flexible. They roll into the round with introverted intuition first. And I know about the flexibility of introverted intuition. It's not considered flexible. It's kind of counter-flexible in some sense. People think of it as that. But that's not how it plays out at all. It is actually remarkably flexible. It's just that it's not feeling their way through the flexibility. It's like blinking from one spot to the next, whereas the ENTPs are running around. So, yeah, their flexibility is medium high. And the ISTJ's flexibility is medium, but what I want to stress about this, their flexibility is actually very, very low, okay? The ISTJ's flexibility is very, very low, except their preparation means they're prepared to be flexible. Put it that way, They're prepared to be flexible. So they do have some flexibility built into them by the fact that they've got cards on everything, and they know where they all are, and they can pull them at a moment's notice. And as long as they're not asked to be entirely reactive, they do have some flexibility built in to their system that they've got planned. They're able to plan flexibility. Okay, so now let's go on to the next one. It says cross. What this means is the question and answering period. How well are you going to be able to do the questioning and answering is contingent upon is mostly improvisational skills. Okay, so because you need to be able to follow up on what your opponent is saying. And so I want to stress here, I made a mistake. This should be low, not medium for cross. Okay, flexibility medium, yes. Cross should be low for the ISTJ. They're not going to be very effective in crossfire.
or in cross-examination. They're not going to, if their opponent slips up a little bit, ISTJ is probably not going to catch it soon enough. They might catch it later after it's too late, Go on to the next bit here. We've got frameworkiness, as I mentioned. That's going to be low for the ISTJ, and it's going to be medium-high for the INTJ. What does frameworkiness mean? It means a desire to argue framework and a comfort with framework. Remember that framework is basically ground arguments, definitional arguments, what counts in the round, why we should. If you're making an argument such as, you should vote for me, Judge, because my opponent used a racial slur in the round. That's a framework argument. If you say, you should vote for me because my opponent is making a bunch of non-topical arguments, like, that's not part of this resolution, well, then that's a framework argument. If you're saying the term economic sanctions is defined as blah, 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 and the impacts my opponent are providing are not those things, that's a framework argument. Okay? So basically, the tendency and the inclination to argue definitional stuff and to try to meta up and out of the contention level argumentation, which is just raw impacts, this many dead bodies, this many dollars, is a medium high for the INTJ and low for the ISTJ. Round mechanics. Round mechanics mean how good are you on the flow? Have you covered and answered every single one of their arguments? Have you addressed all their answers to your arguments? Have you been efficient with your time usage? And have you taken really, really good notes during the round, which is called the flow? Your notes in the round are called the flow. And have you flowed well? If you have, then you've got excellent round mechanics. And if you don't, then you've got bad round mechanics. So in this one, ISTJ is going to win with flying colors, even though INTJ is going to have very solid round mechanics as well. The reason being, you just don't get any better round mechanics than that SITE combination. And I can tell you, round mechanics can take you a long, long way. All INTJ has to do is drop one of those points that you made. If you impact it out at the end of that round and stress to the judge, they didn't answer this, their silence means they agree to it, and that means we get all these impacts, and these impacts are enough for us to win the round. If you can do all that stuff, then all you got to do is have perfect round mechanics and let INTJ make one mistake, and you can take the round on round mechanics alone. As far as the presentational stuff, INTJ is going to be better in the presentational stuff than ISTJ by a substantial amount. Because even though INTJ is an introvert, they lead with introverted intuition. And introverted intuition is a creative function, even if it creates in a different way than we extroverted intuitors are used to. Meanwhile, you'll notice ISTJ's NE is way down there in the fourth slot. It's their weakness. They really do not want to have to. They don't want to have to have that sort of flashiness that's implicit in intuition, and they will be prepared in terms of they'll be dressed properly and everything. But they don't even have FE. It's FI, and it's aspirational. So, I mean, their presentation of the ISTJ is going to be shit. INTJ is not going to be a whole hell of a lot better, but it'll be better than that because, like I said, they got intuition in the first slot. Now, lastly, we're going to see who wins this thing then. We're curious. We want to know, Host Eric, who's the winner. I will tell you. Let's look at the scores. Overall, 85 for INTJ, 80 ISTJ. That does not necessarily mean that INTJ won. There could be a low point win. Is there a low point win? Sometimes you think one team made all the better arguments, but one team spoke better, then they get a low point win. Well, no, there's no low point wins in this because they're not actually speaker points. So this is the winner, INTJ, and it was a close round. It was a split decision by a 3-judge panel. INTJ, congratulations. You are now 1-0, and you will be advancing to the next round. ISTJ, don't get too discouraged. I'll tell you why. You will have a second chance because this is a double elimination tournament. You have to lose twice to get knocked out. And the reason we do that is, there are a couple types. If you have the misfortune of going up against them in the first round, you might finish in dead last place, but actually be one of the second or third best debaters, So that's why I'm doing a double elimination. So ISTJ, don't give up hope, all right? Remember, you are much more powerful than people suspect. Why? Planning. Oh, my holy truth, planning. If only I could reach you. Anyway, good job, both debaters. You guys both did a great job. And INTJ, congratulations for your win. See you in the next round.
Talking with famous people.